Hey guys, this is Savannah from earthandwater.co. Today I'm with Amanda Yoa, a podcaster, speaker, community leader, and I also saw that you have a book.
Yes.
I couldn't find any information on it though.
Well, it's not just my book. It was a multi-author
Okay,
book.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was called Becoming You. So there was like 12 or 13 of us. We each had our own chapter, and that actually hit the bestsellers list. So your girl is a best-selling author. What can I say?
Yeah,
But
but
that was a great experience. Yeah. But it's Becoming You. So it might have been hard to find if you just picked me as the author because there was so many authors on that book. Yeah.
gotcha. We're going to talk about confidence, which is something I completely built every bit of my platform on for the past like 8 years. I had rock bottom confidence, like not only ground level, but like we were under the ground. It was so terrible. I didn't speak for 23 years, really. I was nearly mute, not completely mute, but I've had to completely build up everything that I can do from scratch. Were you always confident, or was that something that you had to build as well?
No, I was not confident at all. I was not. That was something that I had to build. I was your avid people pleaser, just um great at, living out life for other people. I was great at doing that. I was like I got to a point where I kind of was just like a shell of a person, you know what I mean? And living life through trying to please other people, I just found myself lost and not having a voice or not having a sense of self. And with that, you don't really have confidence. Um, so yeah, it definitely was a journey for sure of finding myself, finding my voice, finding what was for me, and finding who the woman was behind the thing that I wanted to do so that I could do it confidently and authentically as myself. But yeah, it was a journey for sure. And I was not originally the person I am today. I can tell you that.
Was there a certain point that you were like, okay, this is what I'm doing now? That like I have to build my confidence? Because that's what happened for me. It was like, I just got out of college, and so as a teenager, you're pressured to figure out what you're doing with your life, and you can kind of beat that back a little bit while you're in college. You can like, I'm still not 100% sure, but I'm here doing the thing, so it'll turn
Mhm.
into something, right? And as soon as I got out of it, I was like, okay, it's time to figure it out. And the only thing I could figure out was I wanted to be successful, but I knew that I couldn't do that in the state, that like the mental and emotional state that I was in. So that's kind of what kicked off my, I guess, healing journey.
Yeah. Yeah. It has a lot to do with healing and growing and really discovering, what's for you, and for me, it was, I got to a point where I was always like, in some aspects, the life of the party. I was always like an outgoing person when it came to, I was in my 20s. So I was in my party girl era, you know, drinking, partying, doing all the things. And I was the life of the party when it came to that specific part of myself. But having a sense of who I was, I feel like in a way that was kind of like a facade, It was kind of like an act that I would have to put on to mask what was really going on internally. And it was also my outlet of escaping from the real issues that I was, dealing with internally.
Mm.
And so fast forward, I had my daughter, and I remember like looking at her and being like, well, this is like the most amazing thing you've ever done. Way to go, But at the same time, because it's like first time I ever followed through with something, I was always like, let me try this, let me try that, and not finish it, you know.
Can't do
So
the
for
pyramid.
yeah, so I was like, "Oh my god, here she is." Like, I really didn't have a choice. She was coming whether I wanted her to or not, but it was a very fulfilling moment for me. Becoming a mom is a moment within itself.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember looking at her, and we brought her home, and I'm like sitting there, and new mom, you're like staring at her. Is she breathing? Is she okay? And
Constantly.
I also remember like something coming over me like, She's going to be watching me now.
Mm.
Holy shit." Sorry if I'm not allowed to curse.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Holy
We have a
shit.
button we can push for that.
Oh, okay. So don't say it.
Oh no, you can. I'm like, we have an
Okay.
explicit button and we can just
Oh,
tag that.
cool.
Everybody's cool and informed.
Nice. Cool. All right. So I remember saying, oh my gosh, like, here is this little human. She's going to be watching everything that I do. And I remember back from when I was a child, it wasn't so much what people told me to do. I was always brought up with the do as I say, not as I do
Mm.
kind of metaphor or saying,
Oh, that's what they
you
always,
know?
because it's
Yeah.
too hard to actually do their own advice. So,
Yeah, like so honestly what I took away the most from my childhood and the people that I looked up to was who they were, not what they told me to do.
hmm
It was who they were. That's what I took home the most. So I knew that now she was going to be looking at me. Who am I? I have no sense of self. I have nothing that lights me up. I was in this period of being depressed, anxiety, I had general anxiety disorder. I had panic disorder. I was like extremely unhealthy. I was like 300 pounds. So I knew that I needed to make a change so that I could heal and grow and find out who I was, which I knew she was always inside of me because I would get little snippets. I call her at one time, she was my quiet whisper that became a loud roar. And I feel like that's inside each and every one of us, to live out a life that's passionately you, authentically, and with confidence. It always starts out as a quiet whisper. But if you hone in on it long enough, that quiet whisper becomes a loud roar. And I gave her her moment to speak and I rode off into the sunset with her. And I'm so grateful that I gave myself that opportunity, you know?
you make it sound so easy though. Like you just let her out of
I,
the cage and
I it does sound easy. It
he's like,
does sound
okay, I know
easy.
you've been caged up. You can come out now. Come on, let's go. It's
Yeah.
time.
It does sound like an easy process, but I know if there's people listening who are in their season of growth and their season of healing, for a fact that it's not. And for anybody who's stepping in, you've been in this season of stuck for so long because healing and growth is hard. And sometimes it's easier to stay stuck and stay unhappy. And I did it for many, many years, but there's a time where you get fed up and you realize that there is more to your story and you can show up and show out as you and not be afraid to do so, you know? But yeah, it is hard. And I know sometimes I make it sound easy, but it's really not. But nothing worth doing is easy. That's what I say.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with people pleasing. I never had the people pleasing
Oh
thing.
gosh, I remember.
I I was very opposite of that, I suppose, which is a whole can of worms that we could
You
open. But
were you revolted.
yeah, but
You were a
not
rebel.
in like not in a spiteful way. It was more of a matter of factly way. I was just like,
Mhm.
that's no, no, we're not doing that. That's not helpful. Now, who does that help besides you? That sounds like that just enables greed and perpetuation of patterns that are toxic. And so, no, no, thank you. But uh, people pleasing that really it is easier to stay in. Well, it's easier to stay continue doing what you're doing anyway, even though it is kind of hard because you're aware of how you should be doing better, but you don't know how to do better. But because I mean, we tell all these stories in our head about how it's hard or how we don't know where to go or we don't know how to start. But I think it's just tactic. It's subconscious for sure. Most of us don't realize that we're doing this to ourselves, but we tell all these stories about how we can't start and why, just to put it off longer because we're aware
Mhm.
that it's a lot of work to do so. It's a lot of work to change your patterns,
Yeah.
especially if you're doing the people pleasing thing because we're so trained for external validation, and that requires letting a lot of people down.
Yep. Ain't that the truth? And I think too, a lot of times, we hold ourselves back because we feel like there has to be a perfect moment
Mm.
or a perfect time, and I love living by the motto. And this is like for anything that I'm doing at any level, whether it's healing, growing, stepping in, doing next level things in my life or my business. I always make it messy and do it scared.
Mm-hmm.
knowing that there's never going to be a perfect time. I think some miserable person made up the word perfect as a way to hold themselves back and hold other people back. Because I always say, like, what would you learn? What would you learn in life if you got it perfect on the first try? And then passing the torch, leaving a legacy for those to follow. What wisdom would you have to share if you got it perfect on the first try? We have to realize, healing and growth is not easy. It requires failing. It requires pivots, twists, and turns. It requires things not happening the way that we thought that they would, and digging deeper and looking for the hidden gem in those situations. Instead of looking at life as everything happening to you, turning the page and saying, what is here for me? How is this enabling me to grow into my next level self?
Or
And
enable
then,
you to stay the same.
right, exactly. And then, doing it scared, like we're all going to be scared.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime it's it's, let's break it down. I was not really a straight A student when it comes to biology and who we are chemically, but I know well enough to know that it's who we are as humans. Like our brain is wired to keep us safe. So
Mm-hmm.
anything that we do that's new and unknown, even if it means like, I want to start living a more confident life. I want to start speaking up for myself. I want to stop people pleasing. I want to be, I want to find myself worthy. That's new and unknown in your life. It's going to be scary.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be scared of what people are going to think of you if you're letting people down, as silly as that is to say. You know, um how you're going to feel, how this one's going to feel, how that all those things are going to be put into perspective because it's just your brain's way of trying to keep you safe, trying to keep you to what it knows.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to, in those moments, know that you know what's better for you. And I will always say, no matter what it is that you're doing, the feeling that you get when you take those first steps and you do the thing, it feels so gratifying and so wonderful that you'll forget the fear and the anxiety that had you keeping yourself stuck every single time, no matter what it is. I mean, there's even things that I'm doing now, speaking on stages and starting new things. It scares me. I am scared, you know? And I sometimes hesitate in showing up because I get caught up in that, ooh, it has to look perfect. Then I remind myself to make it messy and do it scared.
Yeah.
And showing up in that space, after I do the thing, the feeling I get is incredible.
And you'll either love yourself for it or you'll find out what you don't like.
Right.
Um, Turning it into something a little bit more mundane than showing up for yourself in other things. I had the story where when I was about 14 or 15, I went to a local water park with my cousin. And we're teenagers, right? So you got to look cool. And he and I were the same age, and he had all of his friends had come, and there was this platform that's I don't know how high it was, but it was higher than the high dive. So you had like the
Wow.
regular diving board, and then you had the high dive, and then there was three platforms on top of that. And we were on the first platform, and it was probably, I don't know, let me, with my terrible depth perception, guess to say that it was 30 to 50 feet in the air. And I'm starting to hyperventilate a little bit thinking about it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be able to jump off of something that high.
Right.
You
And
did?
I did. I got it because we were sitting in a line and it was my turn. He was behind me in line and he went, "If you go up there, you are not coming back down these stairs because you will not embarrass me in front of my friends." And I was like, "Yeah, no problem." I had
Yep.
no idea that I was terrified of heights until I got up there that day. And I got
Oh
up
my God.
there and I walked to the edge and I looked down and just it just washes over you. So I turned around and I went to the stairs and he's staring up at me like this right here. And I'm like, okay. So I turned around and told myself, I was like, just close your eyes, hold your breath, and walk. And that was the day I figured, that was the day I found out I was afraid of heights, but it was also the day that I figured out that you can train your mind to be stronger than your emotions and your body. And you can do things that absolutely terrify you.
Hmm.
That was the first, last, and only time I've ever jumped off of that platform.
Good for you.
But that's
I don't think.
that's what I come back to anytime I'm afraid. I'm like, just close your eyes, hold your breath, and walk. Because
Yeah.
showing up's the hardest part most of the time. Just making your body move and get there.
Yep.
Doing podcasts, showing up to every single call is a little scary,
Oh
but
yeah.
you just show up and do your best.
Yep. And there's always like a learning thing in there. Like hearing your story for me, I was like, I'm putting myself in your shoes. The person, okay, so say I did jump, right? Because I was being pressured, but say I didn't. Say I was like, you know what? This doesn't feel right to me. I'm going to get down.
Mhm.
To me, that speaks a level of confidence as well. I know
Absolutely.
I'm playing devil advocate right now
No,
and I'm
I agree.
calling you out a little bit, but just thinking about it, I thought to myself, that was my first instinct. I would be like, I ain't doing that. To confidently go against the masses of what people are wanting you to do. And if
Mhm.
it doesn't feel right for you, I think that's like another level of confidence that maybe you haven't discovered. So, yeah, that was fucking awesome that you were able to have the balls to jump off because I don't even know if I would have had the nerve to jump off. I do have a funny story when it comes to that, but I will not share it. Or maybe I will if you really want me to. Um, but just not saying no and saying, you know what, this doesn't feel right for me. I don't
Mhm.
want to do it.
Yeah.
That takes a different, so I think it's like no matter which way you look at it too, there was confidence that showed up whether you did it or you didn't do it.
Mhm. Oh, I agree completely. In a lot of cases, in most cases, I would say it's a lot easier to just do the thing than it is to disappoint someone you love. And man, my whole childhood, I definitely he he was the only person on this planet that could tell me to jump, and I'd be like, how high and how many times. He
Mhm.
was it, and to this day is ever been it. And because again, we were the same age and we grew up together. We always told people we were twins. Anyway, moving on.
Oh.
There were so many things that I did that I didn't want to, that I was terrified to do, just because I would rather swallow my fear and do the thing rather than disappoint him. But I have definitely grown out of that, and I have nothing to prove anymore. And no, I don't want to jump off of the platform or swing off of the rope or jump off of the bridge into the water. I'm good.
Yeah, me too. I learned that the hard way. The one time it wasn't at that high, but it was high enough to, I was like, you know what? I think I was like maybe 12 and I don't have a fear of heights. But that one, however high it was cutting it close to, oh, can I do this? And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it and see what happens. This is going to be fun. I love diving. I love swimming. I dove head first. Looking back, I'm like, hey, I probably could have fractured my neck. But when I came up out of the water, I had no bathing suit on
Yeah,
from
yeah, that
the
happened
top.
too also.
Yeah, it rolled down
Yeah.
and I was so proud of myself that I did that in front of everybody that I didn't even realize I was topless. And I'm getting up and I'm climbing up the rails of the of the side ladder and then I could feel the wind hitting me and everyone's kind of looking at me like, does this child know that she has no top on? And I
Community.
looked down and there were my little itty bitty titties out for everyone to see. So yeah, for many reasons, I will never high dive. Not for me. We'll keep the Olympians to that.
Yeah. No, it can be super dangerous. I have a friend who
Yeah.
he was top of his class going to be a paramedic, and last year was about to graduate and went cliff diving and broke his back and never could again from there meet
Mm.
the physical requirements to be able to go into the field that he was top of his class to be in.
Oh my
I
gosh.
know.
It's crazy. Yeah, see, there's a lot that could happen. I look back, I'm like, you were
So
lucky, Amanda.
don't moral of all of these stories, do
Yeah.
not succumb to peer pressure. It
Yeah.
can be
Don't do
incredibly
it.
dangerous.
Don't do it. And make sure that you have like, if you do it, that your boobies aren't hanging out when you get up out of the water.
Yeah, I think that external validation though is the number one thing that affects all of us who have confidence and anxiety issues.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it it's a sneaky little sucker because it can come up at many different levels. And it just goes to show that we're never done healing, we're never done growing. It's a nice reminder that we're still on this journey of healing and growth, right? But sometimes it smacks you in the face at spaces and places that you would least expect it to. Like when I finally found my passion and my purpose, I was rolling, I was on my game. I'm like, this is great. I feel great. Anxiety gone, depression gone. I'm finally doing my thing. I'm going to show up in the coaching world on Instagram, right? So I'm like, so I'm going to make my impact. I started out through Reiki. I was a Reiki practitioner, and
Cool.
I remember all my clients saying, "Amanda, you give great advice. You would be a great mentor. You should look into life coaching." And I was like, you know what? That sounds amazing. Let's try that. And I fell in love with it. I love being able to help people, helping people see a different way of, you know, introspection and perspective. So I show up in the Instagram world, in the coaching world, and I see all these amazing coaches that are so many steps ahead of me and how they're showing up and the things that they're doing. And I have what I call this hat phase. And it's still on my Instagram. If you scroll down, I'll never delete it because it was the biggest lesson I had to learn for me, because I was trying to people please and cookie cutter myself into that industry so that people would like me, so that people would accept me.
Mhm.
And that hat to me, it was a nice fedora hat. I actually have it right here. Hold on one second. For anyone who's watching, this was my hat. I was just recently talking about it. Isn't it cute?
It's beautiful, yeah. And it's my
Ruffle
color, green.
feather, right? It does look cute on me, but with my short hair now, it really doesn't work that well. But this hat right here was a symbol of what I thought success was, showing up and being successful. This hat was a symbol of what I thought I needed to be in order to be liked and accepted. And I quickly found out that that was the wrong way to go. Showing up became exhausting, showing up became stressful. And I got to a point where I was like, wait a minute, what are we doing here? And I realized, Amanda, something you finally found your passion and your purpose. Now we're in this space of being unhappy again. What happened? And I realized that I was trying to people please my way of finding success in whatever it is that I wanted to do. And I was trying to have everybody like me when in reality, we're not for everybody, right? I'm sure there's going to be people that listen to me and say, this girl's not my cup of tea. And that's fine. I love that because I know I'm being 100% me in doing that, but I was living out this Instagram coaching world of I'm just another cookie cutter coach with a hat on. And I watered myself down to where I couldn't even show up as myself because I didn't even know who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to reel myself back in and call it an epiphany moment. I was kind of just like having a conversation with myself as I always do. And I said, Amanda, why don't we just like show up as ourselves and see what happens. And I was like, you know what? That's a really good idea. Let's do that because doing this ain't working. So let's try that. And now showing up and just being me it's effortless. It doesn't take effort to be yourself. It doesn't take effort to show up and speak on what you know because it's your lived experiences. And knowing that you're not for everybody. I think that's the sweetest juice that we can give ourselves in that whole lesson there that I had to learn was that I'm not for everybody and I don't want to be because when I'm for everybody, I lose myself in that process. So I continue to have those little people pleasing moments in every level of things that I'm doing. But it's, what you in those moments, what you choose to do and, really looking at your situation and reminding yourself of who you are. And I always say, when we can authentically bring ourselves to the table with confidence, there will always be room for us at a table, no matter what it is. If you're in business, if it's in life, whatever it may be, in something that may feel so saturated, there will always be room for you at the table when you bring the uniqueness that is you. And if there's not, you make your own table. That's what I say.
I agree completely.
Right?
For one, if it's exhausting you, it's not you. And it's
No.
unsustainable. You can't do that. You can't continue that. And it takes a lot of experimentation to figure out, especially when you're starting from scratch and you don't know who you are, because most of us don't in the beginning, for sure. Our society doesn't, I'm not sure any society really focuses in on children and like helping them figure out who they are and in this world, which is
Yeah.
terrible. And which it served a purpose historically, because we needed the village. We needed to fit into the village. We needed the village to like us so that we didn't die. We needed other people to live. So we've only just now come to this place in history where it is safe to be ourselves, and figuring out who we are is how we figure out where we fit into the village, in a way that energizes us, in a way that we can give back to everybody else because it's not draining us and it's is sustainable, and it isn't
Right.
something that we are just loathing ourselves to have to do, and hating the world that we have to do it. And but there's also levels to figuring out who you are and finding the confidence in that, because for one, you got to experiment, you got to test the waters and see what you like and what you don't like. And then you have to become comfortable with yourself as that person before you can become comfortable with other people as that person. For example, I remember this person I went to school with, I graduated with her, and she had posted on Facebook one day a picture of herself in this really bright red lipstick. And I was just like, oh my gosh, you're just like, I love that. I love that so much. I wish I could wear things like that. And her answer was, oh, of course you can. You just put it on. And that's so funny. You don't understand. And so I started experimenting with the lipstick. And for one, like when I first started out, I would put it on only when nobody else was home. So like with myself in the
Yeah.
bathroom, like can't even leave the bathroom. And then you slowly you come out of the bathroom with it on, and then oh wow, nothing bad happened. And then you go around your family and oh, look at that, nothing bad happened. And then you wear it to Walmart, you know. And then the same thing with the first time I ever wore high heels just out, because I went to the dentist in my high heels.
Oh, I love that.
And it was the first time I had ever been to this particular dentist, because I used to have this up until about 3 years ago, this tooth stuck straight out of my face. So
Uh-huh.
it was my consultation to get Invisalign to fix that. So lo and behold, to me, once I got there, it was this really, because I live in a historical town. So this building, the dentist office was in this like building from the early 1900s, and the floors were wood and hollow, and it was just the loudest clanking you have ever heard in your life. You could hear me walking, no matter if I tried so hard to walk lightly and on my tiptoes, and I was sweating and I was shaking because it just radiated through the whole place.
Oh my God.
But because my shoes drew so much attention, I got like 3 compliments on them that day.
Oh, see? There you
Yeah.
go.
You just gotta
I
do it
love
scared.
that. I love that. And I totally agree. It really does come down to it's funny because I made a post about this today. It'll be on my Instagram today. But I posted something in my story yesterday about the post, and I'm repurposing and using it as a reel today. Um because I think it's something that really needed to be elaborated on, and it really goes to what you just said. You really have to get comfortable with who you are first and what you're doing before you are comfortable with everyone else seeing you do that. And I was currently in a space where, and I've always been this way. And astrologically, it's known as a cat for anyone who's into astrology. It's like who we are as Capricorns. We're very reserved until you get to know us, and
Mhm.
then you see, like, the party behind the veil or the wall, so
I'm very
but
Capricorn heavy.
you're a Capricorn too?
I'm Capricorn heavy. So I'm a
Oh,
Capricorn
okay.
rising, and then most of my planets are in Capricorn. It's not my
Oh,
sun or my moon sign.
okay, gotcha. Yeah, I don't know what my other ones are. I used to remember them, but now I don't. But so, but you can make a decision that that's not who you want to be, and I'm like, I don't want to be that person where you have to get warm me up and like, I want to be that, I can just show myself to anybody, right? So I had to get comfortable with who that person was. I had to figure out who she was. And now I'm in the season where I really know my wheelhouse. I really know who it is that I am. And I'm ready to show up and show out in a level that I've never even gotten to before. So I love that you said that because I think that's so true. But it's also an important step, taking those, like dipping your toes in the water, testing out the waters. Um, and seeing, like trying on the lipstick here by yourself, getting yourself comfortable with that. Then maybe, wear it around your close friends who you feel safe or someone you feel safe around. Then go out in public. And then you just
Selfie.
build and you build. Yeah, take some selfies, post them on Instagram, see what feedback you get. Right. But just know no matter what people have to say, if it makes you feel good and if it's authentic to you, who gives a shit what those people have to say? Because I will tell you the most disheartening thing when it comes to change and becoming your more confident self is when you don't receive support in spaces and places and from people that you would most expect it from.
Yep,
And,
100%.
to that, I think it's just those people were your surroundings. Now, if we're talking about energy, energy is real
Mhm.
and like attracts like, right? So that version of yourself who wasn't comfortable with who she was, who wasn't confident, was maybe surrounded by other people who felt the same. And
Mhm.
now here you're taking steps to grow, to become a more confident self. So A, you're changing, which is going to make anyone be like, "Hey, what's happening here?"
Mhm.
And B, you're going to start making people feel a certain type of way because you're
Mhm.
triggering them.
Mhm.
You're triggering them to grow. And in that moment, they can choose to be triggered and stay stuck, or they can choose to be triggered and look within themselves and say, "Hey, you know what? I like what she's got going on. Maybe I'm going to try to do that for myself,
Mhm.
you know? But I've discovered that, when you're really living your life for you, there's going to be a lot of people that discourage that. And
Mhm.
it's the people that are the closest to you who you would least expect it from.
Yeah.
But you have to know in those moments that if it feels right to you, if if you feel the most alive you've ever felt, the most good about yourself that you've ever felt, then keep doing it and just realize it's a them thing, not a you thing.
Yeah, you gotta remember that they're projecting. They're because
Right.
a lot of times they do come at it with, anger and judgment, but you have to remember that they're judging themselves and angry with themselves that they've never taken the step to do what they wanna do, and the
Yep.
fact that you are makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And they don't realize it. They don't realize they're projecting. They don't realize that they're being triggered because of something within themselves. They think it's about you. And you have to really hold on to being confident in the decisions that you made and being sure about them. And which is, who's ever really sure about anything, honestly. But, we're just doing our best. We're human
Yeah. We're
and
just trying our best
just doing our best to survive in this
out in
hellscape.
these streets.
But having that compassion for them when they come at you with that type of energy.
Yeah. You know what? I love that you say that because I see a lot of things on Instagram and I know maybe it's just like, pages of people who are just trying to be sassy and bring that sass because they think sometimes when you bring sass, it means you're confident. But sometimes sass can come off as mean girl energy. And I
Absolutely.
hate when I see people post things like, I don't need those people in my life. I think there's boundaries for sure, and you should have those boundaries,
Mhm.
right? But you're going to see if you start stepping into a next level version of yourself and people that mean something to you that are your friends and your family, it's really not their fault that they're not able to, be supportive of that. And you're doing yourself a disservice if you're expecting them or if you're expecting you from them.
Mhm.
That being said, I think it's important to be intentional when you are in a season of growth to surround yourself with people who are already into the game 3, 5, 7 steps ahead.
Mhm.
Invest in a mentor, invest in a coach and people who will give you a safe space to grow into this version of yourself so that you don't have to cut off this person, that person. I hate when I see that. Like, don't talk to them. You're going to end up with nobody. You just have
Mhm.
to be intentional and realize that not everybody is on the same journey as you and they're
Mm.
not in the same place as you. And having compassion along that journey of finding yourself is extremely important. There's people that my mom, I talk about her, I talk about my mom all the time. My mom, she'll give me every reason in the book not to do something. She'll give me every reason in the book to discredit what I'm doing. I
Mm.
know it's a her thing, it's not a me thing. I still share those things with her because she's my mom. I want her to know what's going on in my life, but I'm intentional about that share, and I'm intentional about understanding what I'm going to receive from her. So it's really all about your intentionality when you're stepping into this next level version of, being authentic and confident. Because it can be really disheartening. Like, it's new to
Sure.
you, right? So you're like not sure of yourself. And
Mhm.
then you're trying to like receive support from people who they can't even do it for themselves. So how do you expect them to do it for you? So find yourself a community of women who are already, in the thick of living out as their confident self, whether they're 2 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead, 12 steps ahead, because that is your safe space where you're going to be supported and held, and you're not going to feel a certain type of way. It's all about intentionality.
Absolutely. I had a guest recently that brought up the point that boundaries are about keeping people in your life, not building a wall between them. Because
Yeah.
intuitively, we think that holding boundaries means throwing up walls in between us and the unsupportive parent. But it's about knowing what will keep the relationship from deteriorating and not stepping over that. For example, I feel you completely on that. Only I have to be 3000% confident in what I'm doing for about a year before I'm comfortable sharing it with my mom. Uh,
Why will she be like giving you every reason in the book not to?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, see,
Absolutely.
and it's just a them thing. I think it's a generational thing,
Sure.
and these are the things that we've had to overcome, and we've had to break these chains. Like, we're out here doing the work that our mothers and grandmothers and whoever else couldn't do in their lifetime. So
Good.
giving them grace and realizing that's okay that you weren't able to do it. I'll pick up the slack. But, it's like being intentional. Sometimes mom ain't going to give you what you need. And it's crazy, right? Like when I seen this quote recently, and it really hit for me. When you realize that you've emotionally and mentally outgrown your parent,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that crazy? I
It's
was like,
not their
oh
fault
my,
though. They didn't have the information that we have now. They didn't have the opportunities. I always talk about how the internet's brand
exactly.
new, and before the internet, you had to go to your local library and sift through 100, 300 books and hope that the books are accurate and that they have the information that you're looking for, or that you even know what information you're looking for, because we didn't. And I didn't know what kind of information. Apparently, I was really in what I should be on or am on is personal development and energy work type stuff. But I didn't even know what any of that was until I was in my early 20s. I
Hmm.
I can't because I'm from a really small town in Alabama. The only anything in that direction we had was Christianity. Period. There's
Yeah.
nothing else, no other options. So you had to even know first what it was that you were trying to figure out. And that's next to impossible when you've never even heard it was a exist. If you've never seen shoes in your life, you have no idea what shoelaces are, much less that you don't know how to tie them.
Right. Exactly. And I'll give you just to give you a different perspective on that. I'm from a big city, and I didn't get into spirituality until my 20s either, because I grew up in um predominantly a Catholic upbringing. My grandmother is a devout Catholic, and so any sense of spirituality or woo woo, that in itself was like, all right, I need to like somehow tell people that I'm into this because it's actually helping my life. And maybe,
Yeah.
and
Develop and
it's
think
new
it's
and it's unknown, but yeah, like you just, if it works for you, it works for you. And sometimes you didn't, it's something that growing up in the city as a city kid was not taught, was not really, not really, people weren't really into it. I feel like nowadays with social media and, everyone on Instagram, it's a trendy thing to do.
Right.
But I feel like more people speak on it that actually live it,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh,
and that
100%.
could be a whole story for another day.
Absolutely. For every, and it's important for people to know that for every, I'd say 25, let's go with 25.
Yeah.
For every 25 people out there talking about this stuff, you might find two, maybe,
Yeah.
that
If
actually
you're
know what they're
lucky.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're lucky. It's
Yeah.
probably more, the ratio is probably closer to 50 to 1, 50 to 2, something like that. That's not me being like, oh, I know what I'm talking about. Listen, no, like that's for me trying so desperately hard to figure things out and hitting brick walls with people who are just trying to get money off of trendy things and
Mm-hmm.
buzzwords.
Yeah. Good old Instagram.
Mhm. Coming back to the we touched on earlier, the alcohol and partying stuff. I definitely fell
Gosh.
into that trap. And because I I'm neurodivergent, so I had to mask my entire life to
Mm.
be able to fit in and be accepted and not get bullied and stuff. Um, which led to a lot of my confidence issues and problems and whatnot. And alcohol was totally something that allowed me to take off the mask in a confident way
Mm.
and start to figure out who I was, which is definitely not the healthiest thing to do. And I am not advocating that if you aren't sure who you are, go get drunk.
Right. You'll find out real quick. Uh, no, no. No, I feel that too, though. It's like, in a way, and then that was, for me, alcohol was the escape for me. It was the escape from everything that held me back from being myself and what I had going on in my life, and alcohol does that. It kind of muffles reality,
Hmm.
and for me, that was the easier way out to just live my life like that. But, you get to a point where, you get older. So, like, you start growing out of the party life
Hmm.
and, you can't deal with a hangover anymore. I mean, I'm 38. It takes me like 3 days to recover from having a few drinks with my girlfriends, let alone binge drinking,
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's just a way to escape. And that really goes along to, a lot of people growing up in Philly, I addiction's really bad in that area. And a lot of people chose that as a way to kind of deal with what they had going on because it was, it numbed them from reality.
Hmm.
And it's unfortunate, but you know, I think feeling lets you know that you're alive. And feeling allows you to listen to the things that you kind of been suppressing. Because I was at a point in my life where I suppressed so much that I think my body was on a physical level of breakdown. My mind broke down, my soul broke down, and then it got to a physical level. And that's where I started having panic attacks. And I was like, sometimes we get so used to suppressing that we don't even consciously realize what we're suppressing,
Hmm.
right? Because we've suppressed it for so long. But your body will let you know. Your mind is powerful and it will get to a point where it sounds the alarm. And for me, at first I'm like, where are these panic attacks coming from? Because it would come at a point in my life where I was like on the couch having my me time. Like the chaos of kids and house and everything was put away. Kids were sleeping and I was finally getting to settle down. And that one moment of silence and space that I allotted myself was when my inner chaos came out because it was literally screaming to be heard.
Hmm.
So for me, yeah, partying and drinking was my go-to, but I will tell you, I can't feel a hangover anymore, and I'd rather feel my feels than
Yeah.
feeling a hangover, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, we hide from our feelings and our emotions and we run from them, but you can't. And
No.
the problems that they cause are going to be not only mental and emotional, but physical and quality of life. They're going to have effects on things that you didn't even know they could affect, like your career and your money situation, your relationships with food, your relationships with others, your relationship with yourself. Like we could go on for ever about what your emotions literally affect everything in your life.
Mhm.
And the only way to, I feel like I'm pretty convinced that if you just learn how to slow down for a second and listen to your body and your emotions and allow them to be what they are and explain themselves, and you work through it together and you just get to the other end of it, that in and of itself will pretty well single-handedly fix 90% of every problem you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But it, like I said, it can be really hard when you're doing that because it's sometimes easier to just stay stuck.
Yep.
Because when you give that space, all those things that you didn't want to feel and you've been avoiding are going to come up and want to be heard. But I will say, the more you do it, I call it like the shifting of the tide. So, like, imagine, I know growing up, we probably all have been in those circle pools and you played that game where you started a whirlpool.
Yeah.
You just go in a circle, and then before you know it, like your feet, you can take your feet up and just drift. And then you always had the part where you would try to turn around and walk against the tide, right? And it was always extremely hard. When you first started going through, you would have to like really trug, but the more you were consistent, the more you kept moving forward, the easier it got, and before you knew it, you were going in a different direction. I
Mhm.
always use that analogy for, growth and healing. It's really hard, but the more you're consistent with it, and the more you tap in with who you are, the more you can find out, the things that have been holding you back from living a life that's authentic and confidently you.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy because it's going to make it feel worse at first.
Yeah.
When you first start trying to analyze these emotions and these thoughts and these feelings, it's definitely going to make it worse at first. Like with the whirlpool, you're going in one direction with very little effort, and then when you turn around, it suddenly takes every bit of effort you have and everything gets harder, and you are probably going to have anxiety and panic attacks for a little bit. um but if you just keep with it, and you have to hold it in your heart, the knowing, again, that's the mind over the emotions. You have to know, you have to remember that this is for the best,
Mhm.
because that's how you get out of those poor lifestyle patterns and mental patterns and mindset patterns, belief
Yeah.
patterns, all of the patterns.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, tell everybody how they can find you and about your podcast.
Yeah, so you can check me out on Instagram. I'm on there under amandayoa.official. You can also check out my podcast. There's a link on my Instagram for my podcast. If you want to go on there, check out my bio. All my links for everything I got going on are in there. Um, but my podcast is Staying Inspired with Amanda Yoa. We have weekly episodes. I just recorded this morning with my husband, so that should be a juicy one. We just started season 3 and I love it. I love the podcasting world. I love the community that it brings. I love being able to share my truths with humor and, wisdom and everything to, for women who are looking to just take their lives to the next level, whether it's their life, their business, whatever it is that they want to do. I really am all about bringing who you are in what you do because anyone can do anything, right?
Mhm.
But when you bring who you are in what you do, that's when you really stand out. And that's where you really have the most fulfillment in life. And with that is that authenticity and that confidence, which is you. So, that's what we speak on a weekly basis. We have fun. So check us out if you're interested, staying inspired. You can look me up on whatever little doodad you listen to your podcast with. I know there's like a slew of them. So
Yep.
look me up, and thank you for having me on. I love this conversation. It was so good. So good.
It was a lot of fun, and I'll make sure that I link all of that close by. Was it hard to get your husband to do an episode, or did he want to, or?
He was no, he was good. He's we're very much I'm more the talker of us two. He's like more quiet, but towards the end I'm grateful that we had a technical difficulty. We were recording and all of a sudden everything just shut off and I thought we were like 25 minutes in. I was like, "Oh my gosh." But thankfully it recovered and the second half I think that little break kind of gave him like the, okay, I'm loose up now. So I could
Right.
be more myself. Cause it was kind of hard at first. I would have him say something and he'd be like, one word or two word. And I'm like, supposed to have a conversation here. But it was a lot of fun and it was long overdue. So
What
it
was
should
the
be,
topic?
oh my gosh. There really wasn't one, I'm gonna be quite honest. I mean, we did talk about, because 'cause I've been with my husband for years, since we were kids.
Me too.
Um, so are you really?
Yeah, we've
That's
been together since we
awesome.
were 16.
Yeah, us too. We were like, how old was I? Well, we known each other since we were like 12 because we went to the same school. But we kind of just like grew up together and got into a relationship and just, got married and here we are today. So just speaking on all of that and the pressure of all of that, that other people, see this perfect relationship and it's not so perfect as it seems. And, just speaking on how relationships and marriages take work and take constant growth individually so that when you are together as one, you work, you know? So we talked about that and then we did some fun things and some funny things. So you have to check it out. It's fun. It was a good
Yeah,
one.
that is super cool. My husband would never, never.
No?
I pull out a camera and he's like hiding.
That's funny. You gotta get him when he's not expecting it.
Yeah, I have to.
Get
That's
like a
exactly what I
candid
do.
conversation. Be like, I want to sit down and talk. You could call it an undercover episode. He was under you were undercover, he didn't know. That'd be pretty funny.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my goals. I have new goals now.
That's funny.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. It has been a lot of fun.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for having me.